In this video, I'm going to give you 5 pointers to help you teach listening lessons for your CELTA course so that you can radically improve your listening lesson outcomes, both for you as a teacher and for your students. The first point is really just to get the framework for a listening lesson clear in your head. Now, we've got a serious advantage when it comes to the receptive skills, and the receptive skills are reading and listening. And the advantage is this, that the framework for both lessons is pretty much identical. Both a reading and a listening lesson, they start with a lead in. Then they usually go to a pre-teach of vocabulary. That pre-teach of vocabulary isn't always there. Sometimes it comes later, sometimes it's not present. But I'm going to say in a listening lesson, more often than not, you are going to have a pre-teach of vocabulary right there at the second spot. First time then you get your students to listen, it's going to be the third stage in the lesson, and that's going to be the listening for gist task. Following the listening for gist task, the fourth stage in the lesson is going to be listening for detail, and the final stage in a listening lesson is going to be the follow-up productive task. And usually the productive task is going to be a speaking task. Sometimes it could be a writing task. And then in other types of lessons, but almost never on a CELTA, it could be a language task, or it could be a variety of things. But almost always on your CELTA, your follow-up productive task at the end of your listening or reading lesson is going to be a speaking task, allowing your students to respond to what they just heard or respond to what they just read. Okay, my second big tip revolves around the difference between where you place importance in a reading and listening lesson. And I'm going to zero in on that pre-teach of vocabulary. When it comes to pre-teaching vocabulary, while the word vocabulary is in there, it's not a vocabulary lesson. So what I mean there is you don't necessarily have to go into the meaning, form, pronunciation, the MFP of your target language to the same degree that you would in that vocabulary lesson. In fact, we don't even think about it as target language because you're not targeting anything to practice. You're just giving some help with some vocabulary to help your students do the gist and detailed task. Where it comes to reading, it might not be so important to spend any time with pronunciation because after all, the students just need to recognize what they're reading and talk about it afterwards. Whereas with listening, pronunciation does take on a higher degree of importance. So you might spend a bit of time drilling the pronunciation of some of this vocabulary that you've decided to pre-teach. Now, that's not to say that you have to drill everything and ask concept checking questions and check the form of everything in your pre-teach of vocabulary. Absolutely not. My point here is that when it comes to listening, just give a little bit more time to the pronunciation side of things, whereas you might not give that much degree of importance when it comes to reading. My third point revolves around a question that I get asked all the time as a tutor, and that is, how many times should you play the recording? I have a very simple answer to that. 9 times out of 10, it's twice. Once for gist and once for detail. Now, almost always I get the retort, yeah, but what if they don't understand it? I just want to play it one more time to help them understand it. Well, I have a few thoughts and questions around that. The first one is, let's say I'm listening to something in a language that's not familiar to me, and I'm asked a question and I can't understand what's been said. I know that the answer is there, but I just can't understand it. Well, playing it again maybe if it's something that I just missed, it might help me, but if it's that I can't understand it, well, all it's really doing is just confounding my frustration, really. What is a better strategy then? Well, a better strategy revolves around how you set tasks up. So I spend quite a bit of time before the students listen for gist, maybe brainstorming and predicting and keeping that gist task very appropriate for the students' learn level. By predicting and using images and pre-teaching vocabulary, this helps to do what's known as activating the student's schemata. If the students have a sense, if they can orient themselves before they even listen to anything, it's going to help a lot. If I'm listening and I can hear what sounds like a stadium and I can hear what sounds like the sound of a football being kicked, then I know that it's probably not a radio show about movies or politics. I know it's probably sport and most likely football. So I've already kind of like narrowed the world down to a set of parameters, and that's going to help me eliminate lots of things that it can't be in terms of the answer that's being required of me for the task that I'm doing. When it comes to doing the detailed task, this is where it gets even more interesting with the interaction patterns. What I usually do is I give the students the questions and I ask them in pairs to go through each question and give them the task, what can you remember from the first time that you listened to this? And student A might remember something for 3 out of the 10 questions, and student B might remember something for 3 or 4 out of the 10 questions that they're being asked to listen to for detail. So this means that when they go to listen to it the second time, they're really only trying to catch 2 or 3 things that they don't really know. For the other 6 or 7, they're just checking off. Can I hear what my partner said? Or can I confirm what I said? Can I say, yeah, you hear that? That's what I said the answer was. So it changes how the students are doing the task, and it allows the task to be so much more communicative and so much more student-centered. Before I get on to the next tip, I just wanted to take one quick minute of your time to tell you about my website where you can book an appointment with me, a free 45-minute consultation just to talk about whatever your language teaching goals are. I'm here to spend that time with you and discuss how you can better achieve them. My fourth big tip is where things start to get really interesting. You know, we often talk about extensive reading, you know, which means to encourage students to read outside of the classroom. You know, I would say also to encourage extensive listening. Try to generate some conversation between yourself and your students about what kinds of podcasts that they listen to, or maybe recommend some podcasts, or maybe dedicate a section of your lesson, your next lesson, say, hey, we're going to spend 5 minutes at the start of the next lesson to talk about what's your favorite podcast. Or if it's a lower level, I tend to encourage them to talk about what they like to watch on YouTube, because YouTube obviously has such a range of appeal and a range of levels, but also it's visual. So, you know, that helps students to fill in the gaps where they may not have caught what was being said. And my fifth tip, this is if you want to really start to get kind of, I'd say maybe adventurous with your listening lessons, but it's really, when this works, it's really something fantastic, and it's called live listening. So what live listening involves is I'm going to go into my lesson with my learners and I'm going to ask them to take out what you can pretty well assume most people almost everywhere in the world is going to have, and that's one of these guys, a smartphone. You're going to tell them either turn on the voice recorder or the video, either is fine, and to record you. I would avoid having a detailed script. I would have kind of like what I have for this video. I've got a set of bullet points here and I know what I'm going to say. The bullet points are there just to help give me a framework for what I'm going to say, but the actual words happen spontaneously. And there's so many advantages to that from the point of view of your learners. First of all, just that natural speech is really the aim of the game for them. And then by recording you can give them a gist task while they're recording you, and then you can have your detailed task based around your bullet points and say, okay, with your partner, go and watch your recording and find the answers to these questions. What did I say about bullet point A, B, C, and D? This becomes incredibly engaging for your learners. They love the fact that they have a little recording of you on their phone. It's very student-centered. It's very, you focused right on them, and you're using what I would say is the best resource in the class, and that's not the MP3 or the video or the computer or the smart whiteboard or the projector or anything in the room. The greatest resource in the room is you. And doing a live lesson in this way allows students to tap into that most invaluable resource in the language classroom. Okay, that's been my 5 tips on how to radically improve your listening lessons when it comes to working on CELTA. But indeed, these tips can be applied to the Trinity, CERT, TESOL, and other TEFL courses. So I really hope that you can use them. So let me know down in the comments, what is your approach to listening? How many times do you tend to play the recording for the learners? Have you ever experimented with something like live listening, or can you see yourself doing that? Or do you have any novel ideas when it comes to listening? I'd really love to read any of your comments down below. Okay, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps to get the word out there for other people who may benefit from these videos. You know, my whole mission is really just to help as many people in the world be successful English language teachers, and then of course help all of our students. Thank you so much for watching, and all that's left for me to say is I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.